my sense of privacy, because I do feel like I've always been a fairly private person leading a public life, led me to perhaps be less understanding than I needed to of both the press and the public's interest as well as right to know things about my husband and me. I've always believed in a zone of privacy, and I told a friend the other day that I feel after resisting for a long time, I've been rezoned.
She was First Lady at the time, Hillary Clinton, answering questions about an Arkansas land deal and about money that she made on cattle futures when her husband was governor. And this was, of course, when she was First Lady. A high-stakes attempt to silence her critics after months of questions. She was facing the White House press corps.
Why do you think that they gave you this treatment, with you being such a small customer? Don't you think that was preferential treatment based upon who you were and who your husband was?
No, I really don't believe that. I don't think there's any evidence of that.
More than 20 years later, Clinton's public and personal moves are still raising questions, as is her approach to what should be public, what can remain private. What is the zone of privacy for such a public official? I'm joined now by MSNBC's Rachel Maddow. Rachel, thank you very much for joining us, because this is a decades-long issue for her and for other public officials, but she's really struggled with it. And I've always felt it's because of the tumult around the Bill Clinton presidential primary campaign in 1992 and all of the really tough and invasive issues that came up, the draft, Jennifer Flowers, all during the New Hampshire primary. It was her introduction to national politics.
Sure, and
I don't want to get on the couch, but that's just sort of...
Well, in that 1994 press conference, I'm so glad to see those clips. A, just because the history is amazing to see, right? And to see you there asking you those questions, it is, just as an artifact, it's amazing. But that press conference, when we talked about it last night in the context of this show, I went back and read the transcript of that press conference, and it's endless. It goes on and on and on and on and on, because she sat there and took questions endlessly from the press corps for more than an hour as First Lady, exhaustively. Cattle futures, Whitewater, the death of Vincent Foster, I mean, all of these different things that she was asked about. And you would think that would have cleared the decks in some ways, but it didn't at all. It didn't at all, and it created more avenues of more inquiry into what ultimately led to the Monica Lewinsky scandal and the president's impeachment in the House. I mean, it was, I think that we have seen her educated in public as to what dealing with the press leads to and how it's out of your hands, and the more you feed them, the more they're fed. And I think that she does have a different relationship with the press with almost everybody else in American politics because of it.
And I think that's why she resists until she can no longer resist, because from her experience from that April 1994 press conference, when she finally let it all out there, she was told that'll be the end of it, and it did end, 6 months later with the special prosecutor Ken Starr. This is part of what she said yesterday about why she, by her admission, and this was a really startling admission at the beginning of her opening statement yesterday, deleted 30,000 what she calls personal emails.
I chose not to keep my private personal emails. Emails about planning Chelsea's wedding or my mother's funeral arrangements, condolence notes to friends, as well as yoga routines, family vacations, the other things you typically find in inboxes. The server contains personal communications from my husband and me, and I believe I have met all of my responsibilities, and the server will remain private.
And today, the Associated Press filed suit against the State Department, saying that they've been trying for years, and they filed suit to get access to the emails.
Well, it's interesting because, as you noted earlier this hour, it is true that it is the responsibility, as Secretary Clinton said yesterday, of each federal government employee who does official business on a personal email account. It is the responsibility of that employee to hand that email over to the relevant department so it can be archived for the purposes of public records. She says she did that. There isn't an independent system by which those things get verified for any employees, including cabinet secretaries. And so that's true. There's all these people questioning now whether or not she made the right decision as to what was personal or work-related. I'm not sure that that can be litigated. I'm not sure that there is a means by which that will ever be sorted out to anybody's satisfaction. But then you also had the gentleman, the congressman, Republican Congressman Mike Pompeo from the Benghazi committee today, saying he has no interest in any personal emails the Republican chair of that committee, Trey Gowdy, saying on our network this morning he wants the whole server. He wants to be the one who goes through it, to go through all of her personal emails and decide to his satisfaction what counts as personal and what doesn't. It's never going to happen. The State Department does have a responsibility to make sure its public records responsibilities are met. The State Department is terrible when it comes to dealing with Freedom of Information Act requests, not just with respect to the Secretary, but with respect to everything. And that is a governmental matter that has to be addressed separate and above the question of what counts as yoga and what counts as diplomacy in Hillary Clinton's own view of her own emails.